Ceasefire on shaky grounds, threatening further hostilities. First group of evacuated Indonesians arrive in Jakarta. Salam Malaysia Madani, this is World Today. I'm SAHIH. The President of the Kyrgyz Republic, Sadir Zaparov, who is on a two-day official visit to Malaysia, attended an official welcoming ceremony at the Perdana Putra complex today. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim received Zaparov upon his arrival at 9 a.m. with the national anthems of both countries played as a mark of respect. The visit marks Zaparov's maiden official trip to Malaysia since assuming office in January 2021 and reciprocates Datuk Seri Anwar's official visit to Kyrgyz Republic in May last year. In 2024, the Kyrgyz Republic was Malaysia's fourth largest trading partner among Central Asian countries, with total bilateral trade valued at 40 million ringgit. Malaysia's main exports to Kyrgyz Republic included electrical and electronics products, palm oil and palm oil-based agricultural products, machinery, equipment and parts. Its key imports from Kyrgyz Republic comprised chemicals and chemical products, electrical and electronic products and processed food. Malaysia and the Kyrgyz Republic established diplomatic relations on 21st May 1992, following Kyrgyzstan's independence after the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. Iran on Tuesday said that Israel was continuing to violate the ceasefire to end the 12-day war, threatening a further resumption of hostilities if attacks continued. US President Donald Trump meanwhile expressed frustration at Israel's violations, who dropped a payload in the first hour of the ceasefire.
These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong. But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either.
Trump scolded both sides for early violations of the truce he announced, but directed especially stinging criticism at Washington's close ally Israel over the scale of its strikes, telling it to calm down. He later said Israel called off further attacks at his command to preserve the deal to end a 12-day air war with Iran. A classified preliminary U.S. intelligence report has concluded that American strikes on Iran set back Tehran's nuclear program by just a few months, rather than destroying it. U.S. media on Tuesday cited people familiar with the Defense Intelligence Agency finding as saying the weekend strike did not fully eliminate Iran's centrifuge or stockpile of enriched uranium. The strike sealed off entrances to some facilities without destroying underground buildings, according to the report. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the authenticity of the assessment, but said it was flat out wrong and was classified as top secret but was still leaked. US B-2 bombers hit two Iranian nuclear sites with massive GBU-57 bunker buster bombs over the weekend, while a guided missile submarine struck a third with Tomahawk cruise missiles. General Dan Kane, the top US military officer, struck a cautious tone, saying the strike caused extremely severe damage to the Iranian facilities. Iran's government said Tuesday that it had taken the necessary measures to ensure the continuation of its nuclear program. An advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei meanwhile said his country still had stocks of enriched uranium and that the game is not over. France and its European partners are still prepared to reactivate sanctions on Iran if an agreement is not reached soon on its nuclear program. French Ambassador to the UN, Jérôme Bonnafont, warned Iran that time is running out as expiration of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Bonafont said negotiations were the only way to guarantee the impossibility of an Iranian military nuclear program, days after the United States conducted strikes against Iranian nuclear facilities. France and its E3 partners, Germany and the United Kingdom, remain ready to use the leverage established by Resolutions 2231.
La France et ses partenaires E3 demeurent prêts à mobiliser le levier établi par la résolution 2231, celui du snapback, si un accord satisfaisant n'était pas trouvé d'ici l'été. Depuis 2003, la France n'a qu'une...
On June 21st,
UN Security Council Resolution 2231 endorsed the 2015 agreement Iran reached with the E3 countries as well as China, Russia and the United States to regulate its nuclear program in return for eased sanctions. President Donald Trump removed the United States from the agreement in 2018. The Indonesian government is working to evacuate around 380 citizens from Iran, which is currently embroiled in an intense conflict with Israel. However, some Indonesian nationals have declined to leave, according to officials on Tuesday. They are reluctant to evacuate due to the long journey involved. Officials said the trip from Tehran to Baku in Azerbaijan takes 16 hours by land, followed by a government-arranged flight. The government has urged Indonesian citizens in Iran and neighboring countries to remain vigilant and prepare for a possible escalation of the conflict. The first group of evacuees from Iran arrived in Jakarta on Tuesday evening.
Tadi kurang lebih pukul 17.35 ya. Dari 97 orang yang sudah kita evakuasi, 11 orang ya, sudah tiba di Jakarta. Ya. Mereka berasal dari dua provinsi, ya, Provinsi Jawa Timur dan Provinsi Kalimantan Timur. Ya. Alhamdulillah mereka dalam keadaan sehat, meskipun kita tahu perjalanan yang ditempuh oleh saudara-saudara kita sangat panjang, ya, sejak tanggal 20 yang lalu.
The first evacuation group included 96 Indonesian nationals, among them 3 embassy staff and 1 foreign citizen married to an Indonesian. Prior to the evacuation, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs raised the security status of the Indonesian embassy in Tehran from Alert Level 2 to Level 1 on 19th June due to the deteriorating conditions. Although some citizens have chosen to stay, the government has encouraged all of them to return to Indonesia for their safety. The United Nations on Tuesday condemned what it said was Israel's weaponization of food in Gaza and called it a war crime, urging its military to stop shooting at people trying to get food. The head of the UN agency supporting Palestinian refugees also called a new US and Israel-backed food distribution system in the Gaza Strip an abomination. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began handing out food in Gaza on 26 May after Israel completely cut off supplies into the occupied Palestinian territory for more than 2 months. The UN and major aid groups have refused to cooperate with the GHF over concern it was designed to cater to Israeli military objectives. According to UN human rights spokesman Tamin Al-Khitan, it was reported that over 410 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli military shelling and shooting nearby the aid distribution points.
Each of these killings must be promptly and impartially investigated, and those responsible must be held to account. These investigations that must take place can help determine the nature of the crime or the violation that has been committed.
The UN said in May that 100% of the population of the besieged territory were at risk of famine. The head of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency said on Tuesday he may have to take an unprecedented decision about the services it provides if funding is not found soon to ease a cash flow crisis. General Commissioner Felipe Lazzarini of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East, UNRWA, said the agency faced a $200 million deficit.
But our situation is even more dire this year than previous year. That when we start the year, in the past, we used to receive the contribution of the United States. But the United States, who was the main donor before, has definitely suspended its contribution to the agency. So that means we have 6 months ahead of us for which we have absolutely no visibility. So 200 million till the end of the year, but I'm still missing the first quarter of 2026. So it is indeed extremely dire.
2 weeks ago, he had been about to suspend 10,000 to 20,000 UNRWA staff in the region because of the cash flow crisis, but an advance contribution from a donor had given the agency respite for the next 2 months. The United States was UNRWA's biggest donor, but President Donald Trump announced broad cuts in foreign aid, including to UNRWA earlier this year. UNRWA provides aid, health and education services to millions in the Palestinian territories and neighboring Arab countries of Syria, Lebanon and Jordan. Israel has banned UNRWA from operating on its territory, affecting its operations in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. In other news, Britain will reintroduce fighter jets capable of carrying atomic weapons to support NATO's nuclear mission, expanding the country's deterrence arsenal. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office said the country will purchase 12 nuclear weapon-capable F-35A fighters in the biggest strengthening of the UK's nuclear posture in a generation. NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte said he strongly welcomes Starmer's announcement, calling it yet another robust British contribution to NATO. Since the end of the Cold War, British nuclear deterrence within the Atlantic Alliance was provided solely by missiles aboard Royal Navy submarines. Tuesday's announcement illustrates the continued re-nuclearization of Europe, the renewed need for nuclear weapons, and the strengthening of NATO's deterrence. The F-35A, manufactured by US company Lockheed Martin, is a variant of the F-35B already used by the United Kingdom, but which can carry nuclear warheads in addition to conventional weapons. The accusation has been a long-standing request from the Royal Air Force. The planes are expected to be stationed at Marham Air Force Base in eastern England.
Guna mentol jimat tenaga untuk lebih jimat.
Russian strikes kill 19 in Ukraine's Dnipro. Russian missiles on Tuesday crashed into schools, hospitals and kindergartens in central Ukraine, killing at least 19 people and wounding nearly 300 in a region coming under mounting pressure. The attacks came as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky arrived in the Netherlands to meet with allies on the sidelines of the NATO Defense Alliance Summit. Zelensky is expected to meet with US President Donald Trump on Wednesday to discuss more sanctions on Russia and arms procurement. Trump has struggled to deliver on his vow to quickly end the Ukraine war, now in its 4th year. He clashed bitterly with Zelensky at the White House in February, which stunned Ukraine's Western allies. Since then, Zelensky has been at pains to try to mend the relationship, but the pair had a brief sit-down at the Vatican in April. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiga said the strikes amounted to a rejection of peace from Russia, which has rebuffed US and Ukrainian ceasefire proposals. Police said an administrative building, shops, educational facilities and children's hospitals were damaged. Russian forces recently claimed to have reached the border of the Dnipro region, gaining a foothold there for the first time in the war. Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Police said that they have arrested Celso Gamboa, a former minister and judge who was being sought for extradition by the United States on drug trafficking charges. The arrest came 2 weeks after Costa Rica approved a constitutional reform that allowed, for the first time in its history, the extradition of its citizens accused of drug trafficking and terrorism. According to Randall Zuniga, director of the country's Judicial Investigation Agency, OIJ, Gamboa, 49, was detained at the request of the United States Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA, for extradition to Dallas, Texas on charges of international drug trafficking. Zuniga said the arrest is a milestone because he will be one of the first extradited in the country, calling it a very important step in the fight against crime. Gamboa held high-profile positions as head of the Directorate of Intelligence and Security (DIS) in 2013, the Minister of Security in 2014, Deputy Attorney General in 2015, and was also a Supreme Court Justice from 2016 to 2018. Due to rampant drug trafficking, Costa Rica, previously the safest territory in Central America, had a homicide rate of 16.6 per 100,000 inhabitants by the end of 2024.
Finland on Tuesday unveiled a new segment of a 200-kilometer fence it is building along its eastern border with Russia, aimed at preventing Moscow from conducting instrumentalized migration. The Nordic country shuts its 1,340-kilometer border with Russia in December 2023 after the arrival of about 1,000 migrants without visas.
Finland claimed the search was deliberately orchestrated by Russia to destabilize its neighbor, a charge the Kremlin has denied. In April 2024, the Finnish government decided the border with Russia would remain closed until further notice, a decision it renewed a year later. The first 35-kilometer section of the fence was completed in May in the southeast Finland border guard district. On Tuesday, officials showed off the first of 8 new segments during a tour of the site in Kumo, around 600 kilometers north of Helsinki in eastern Finland. It will be part of a second 18-kilometer section of fence near the Vartius border crossing. In the Kainuu border guard district, which shares a 406-kilometer border with Russia, the second fence section will, when completed, cover 7 other target areas seen as high risk. The entire project is due to be completed in 2026 at an estimated cost of 380 million euros.
A landslide triggered by heavy rains killed at least 10 people and injured 5 others on Tuesday near the Colombian city of Medellin. It was reported that over 10 homes were affected by the landslide, which took place before dawn.
Images shared by local media showed houses buried under earth on a mountain bordering Colombia's second biggest city. Local media reported that at least 15 people were still missing after the tragedy, which was caused by flooding in a ravine. A picture shared by Medellin's Disaster Management Department showed a car and a street caked in mud. Other ex-users shared images and videos of flooded Belo streets. Antioquia, which is situated in the western Colombian Andes, is often affected by landslide during the rainy season. At least 5 people were killed in a landslide in another Medellin suburb, Sabineta, last month.
Tutup tingkap dan pintu untuk kekal dingin dan lebih jimat.
Seruman jentera moped pelbagai kategori terus menggegar dalam perlumbaan motosikal Petronas Malaysia Cup Prix musim 2025. Dengan jiwa kelajuan, nantikan pecutan kemenangan setiap pelumba hanya di RTM.
Boca Juniors were held to a surprising 1-1 draw by amateurs Auckland City and failed to reach the knockout stage of the Club World Cup on Tuesday in Nashville, Tennessee, where the match was suspended for nearly 50 minutes due to stormy weather. Argentine side Boca came into the game needing both a convincing win against already eliminated Auckland City to overturn a 7-goal difference with Benfica and for the Portuguese club to lose to German champions Bayern Munich in the other Group C fixture.
Boca went ahead in the 26th minute.
Benfica's Andreas Schaldrup struck in the first half to seal a 1-0 win over Bayern Munich in sweltering heat on Tuesday, sending the Portuguese side to the top of the Group C at the Club World Cup. With Benfica securing a spot in the last 16, Bayern finishing second are set to face Group D leaders Flamengo. Manchester City held a training session at their base in Boca Raton on Tuesday as they prepared for their third FIFA Club World Cup Group G match against Juventus on Thursday. City play Juventus in their final opening round match to decide who tops the group and who finishes second.
Manchester City needed a win to advance out of Group G and into the knockout stage, thanks to City's 2-0 Wednesday win over Wydad AC, as well as Ain's 5-0 thrashing at the hands of Juventus. Granted, this wasn't expected to be an especially difficult task. Expected margin for error had allowed manager Pep Guardiola to experiment with his lineup, allowing for some rest with the final group match looming against Juventus on Thursday. More importantly for the long view, Guardiola gave several of his new young players an opportunity for a start and a chance to work out some nerves and show some flair in international play. Manchester City stand as the defending champions in the Club World Cup, though recent history has been less kind for the elite side. The season marked the first time in 8 years that City didn't bring home a major trophy, finishing third in the Premier League, falling early in the Champions League and losing in the FA Cup final to Crystal Palace.
Brazilian forward Neymar has signed a contract extension to remain at boyhood club Santos until the end of 2025 while leaving the door open for a longer stay. Neymar, 33, returned to Santos in January after cutting short his stay with Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal, initially signing a deal until 30th June.
But the club on Tuesday announced a new deal which runs until the end of the year and said there was this possibility of renewal after the end of the contract. After 12 matches in this season's Brazilian Championship, Santos are only clear of the relegation places on goal difference. Since his return to Brazil, Neymar has drawn criticism for partying at the Rio Carnival and for appearing in the gimmicky seven-a-side Kings League while nursing injuries. Neymar is the Brazil national team's all-time leading scorer with 79 goals, 2 more than another Santos product, Pelé, but his quest for a World Cup winners' medal has repeatedly ended in disappointment. In total, he has 141 goals and 69 assists in 243 appearances for the club.
Felix Auger-Aliassime wasted little time making an impact Tuesday at Mallorca Championship, making his debut at the grass court event. Auger-Aliassime showed his class at key moments to clinch a 7-5, 6-3 triumph against Arthur Rinderknecht.
The second-seeded Canadian let slip an early 3-1 lead but crucially broke his opponent's serve in the closing stages of both sets to secure a 1-hour, 53-minute second-round victory. The 24-year-old world number 27 will next face Serbia's Hamad Medjedovic. Auger-Aliassime is seeking grass court momentum in Mallorca as he heads into his 6th Wimbledon main draw looking for a better result at the All-England club. Roberto Batistuta Agut will have his eyes on breaking back in the world's top 40 in Mallorca. The Spaniard continued his strong grass swing with a 5-7, 6-3, 6-2 win over Thomas Martin Echeverry in the first round and will now face qualifier Bernard Tomic for a place in the last 8. The Aussie followed up his run through qualifying with a comeback success over his compatriot Rinky Hijikata.
Iga Swiatek kicked off her preparations for Wimbledon with a straight set win over Victoria Azarenka in Bad Homburg on Tuesday. The five-time Grand Slam champion eased to a 6-4, 6-4 success over fellow former world number one to reach the quarterfinals. The tournament near Frankfurt is among the last before Wimbledon starts on Monday.
After trailing 2-4, Swiatek broke Azarenka back 4-4-3 and held to level. The Pole broke again 4-5-4 and saved 2 break points in a tense final game before Azarenka sent a forehand wide to concede the set. The players traded breaks early in the second set before Swiatek pulled away. After breaking 4-4-3, the top seed held serve twice more to seal the win in straight sets. World number 3 Jessica Pegula dispatched 78th ranked Czech Katerina Siniakova 6-2, 6-3 in just over 65 minutes. There was no such barn burner in their third encounter on the German lawns as Pegula was near impenetrable on serve, dropping just 4 points behind her first delivery and facing just 2 break points all day. She advanced to face 5th seed Emma Navarro after beating wildcard Naomi Osaka. Navarro set up an All-American clash with Pegula in their quarterfinals of the Bad Homburg Open with victory over Osaka. Navarro, who is the 5th seed at the tournament, needed just 1 hour and 29 minutes to earn a 6-4, 6-4 win over the former world number one.
Menggosok baju sekaligus boleh menjimatkan elektrik.
That's it from us this afternoon. In our top story, ceasefire on shaky grounds threatening further hostilities. Malaysia Tonight comes at 8:30 p.m. this evening on TV1 and MyTV's Berita RTM news channel. Malaysia MADANI, Rakyat, Disantuni. Thanks for watching.